So here's the deal with energy drinks. If your superhero task and the way that you help other people is that you sit in front of a computer and you scam bait or you trick child predators, energy drinks is not a really good idea, because like we found in the study on gamers, actually energy drinks worsens your reaction time with esports, which is ironic because that's the people to whom energy drinks are marketed most aggressively. I know that it is the deepest desire of your heart to become a real-life superhero so that you can help other people. I had a medic who was descended from First Nations people, and at his first hunt, his father had him bite the heart of a deer that he'd killed, because the idea was like ingesting its power, and be respectful also, which is a side note of that. From two of the things you ingest matter. So what's the deal with energy drinks? Whose performance do they actually improve versus not improve? Listen, in people with long QT intervals or high blood pressure, you actually can increase blood pressure and QT intervals short term. What is the QT interval? What is the QT interval, you might ask? To which I will say, fortunately, I have a picture here that I can't see if you can see. Can you see my picture, dear human? Alright, do you see this? You see this? QRST. The QT interval is the distance from here to here. You don't want that to stretch. The reason you don't want that to stretch is because on the EKG, what that represents is basically the time of your heartbeat. You don't want it to take too long for blood to come out of your heart, and you don't want your heart to be still basically for a long time. You want it to go and blood to come out, go to your brain and all the other good bits of you that you need to survive. So energy drinks increasing that, not cool, and it can also cause, when that increases, just a bunch of cardiac things can go wrong. You can ask the cardiologist, but anybody knows, even a generalist physician like me knows. Okay, anything can happen. Not anything. You're not going to suddenly like go into space. But I feel like I've had an energy drink and I have not. You don't want to increase that, okay? So some folks genetically already have that kind of long. Certain antibiotics can make it a little bit longer actually. So you don't want to be on like hardcore antibiotics and playing around with energy drinks. It does this acutely in the short term. And that's based on an American Heart Association study that you can actually look up at newsroom.heart.org. And you can get the American Heart Association study on energy drinks increasing risk of heart function abnormalities and blood pressure changes. So, not cool. Also, there was a systematic meta-analysis of 32 studies and 96,549 people that found that in the pediatric population, insomnia was at 34% among those who drank energy drinks. Pediatric actually can go all the way up to 21 when we're talking medically. Really, your brain development doesn't finish until like 24 or 25. The pediatricians will take care of people all the way up to 21, sometimes longer if they have developmental disabilities. But in this study, so we're talking, you know, you're 21 or younger, you're doing things to your young, developing, beautiful brain, and 34% of kids who consume energy drinks will have insomnia. That's crazy. That's a high percent. Stress was another 34%. Depressive mood was 23% among the folks who consumed energy drinks. In the adult population, insomnia was 24%. Jitteriness was a side effect, 29%, but like we've all been there. GI upset was 21%. Sometimes we get it rumbly and tumbly. Alcohol mixed with it, there have been cases of deaths, but even in not those situations, you have unusual immediate mood effects. Ironically, it increases the stimulatory effects of energy drinks. The problem with increasing those stimulatory effects is that those are the things that are increasing your QT interval. If I'm not incorrect, caffeine is an inotropic drug, which means that it alters the contractility of your heart. If it's altering, and you can double check me on that if it's inotropic or not, but if it's altering the contractility of your heart, you know, that's That's serious. And again, in low doses, caffeine can be very good for you. Actually, in low doses, it's, you know, a good little heart medicine. But energy drinks don't come in low doses. And especially for children with the developing hearts and the developing brains. Anyway, this study, this huge meta-analysis of 32 studies, was published in the peer-reviewed Sports Health Journal in 2020. So that's serious stuff. Some people should not have energy drinks, really at all. But energy drinks do improve sports performance in certain people. There is a great review that I mentioned earlier in a different video, or just a couple minutes ago, depending on where you are in time, in the Journal of Nutrients. It's this great review. I think I can link it right now. So I really like this large review in the Journal of Nutrients. Usually I don't cite to you guys from reviews. I cite to you from studies directly. This review is beautiful. It's peer-reviewed and everything. In a nutritionist journal, right? And what I like about it is that all its studies are cited so beautifully, and it has some really, really nice studies in it. So, a study by Quinlivan et al. Compared the effect of Red Bull, 3 milligrams per grams of caffeine, and placebo on the sporting performance of cyclists through 1 hour time trial at 75% peak power output, and found that the group who consumed the energy drink improved their performance by 120 seconds. Now, let me say that the standard deviation on that was kind of high. They say 120 plus or minus 172 seconds, which is not a good interval, because that's saying that, like, for some people it got bigger and some people it got smaller, so not great compared to placebo. But I think that they have another measurement where they talk about 3,768 seconds plus or minus 257. They have a bunch of data that one has to parse through. But the energy drink improved performance by like 2 minutes compared to the caffeine group, which improved it by like 1.5 minutes. And similarly, there was another experiment by Curiton et al. In 16 trained cyclists. And this is a small N value. Remember I talked to you guys about N values, that like it's not a great randomized control trial if it's a small number of people, because what is working for those people may not work for you. But it found that they completed 15 to 23 more work during 135-minute continuous ride after consuming caffeinated sports drink with taurine compared to placebo. So obviously they also have to drink a ton of water while they're doing this, because Red Bull, anything like that, is going to kind of dehydrate you. So you drink it beforehand, and then you're just watering up to compensate for that, basically. So, a controlled trial performed by Ivy et al., again in cyclists, checked people who consumed Red Bull. Found that athletes completed a 1 hour time trial at 70% maximum watts. That's how much power they were putting out, in a shorter time than for placebo. So 3,690 seconds versus 3,874 seconds. So again, plus or minus like 200 seconds, which is similar results to the Kovacs and Curitin studies. They've also done these studies in football, where there was a study by Lara et al. Found in that 60 minutes after drinking an energy drink, which was Fure. I've never heard of that one. Standardized as 3 milligrams per kilogram of body weight, maltodextrin, taurine, B group vitamins, and sodium bicarbonate. Their performance improved in counter movement, jumps, a sprint test, and a simulated football match, monitored with GPS devices. So that's kind of cool. So they could see how much distance they ran. The people who had the energy drinks, it was 7 point. I'm not sure I can parse. I don't have the exact numbers. But anyway, they were faster. Now they were marginally faster, but marginally makes a difference when you're talking about high performance athletes. So in the sprint test, top speeds of 24.5 kilometers per hour versus 24.2 kilometers per hour. And it's only that 0.3 difference, but again, you're talking about high performance athletes. That 0.3 difference is going to make a big difference. So it's going to matter. That little bit can change the game. So they also did elite rugby sevens players, which was evidenced by greater muscle power output during a 15-second maximal jump test, running pace during masses, and pace at sprint velocity. Del Costo seems to be a little bit obsessed with energy drinks. They did another study also showing the effect of Fury on athletic performance in sports requiring accelerations. Elite field hockey players. The energy drink reduced the distance covered at moderate intensity running, 793 versus 712 for the placebo drink versus the energy drink, and increased the distance covered in high intensity running and sprinting. So it helps you sprint. Which makes sense, because like after I drink an energy drink, I feel like I need to run away. I feel like I need to flee because I have a bad anxiety reaction to caffeine. So when I used to be on the wards in residency, I remember taking caffeine, like oral caffeine, to help keep myself awake all night. And it made me very alert to everything that could be happening or that could be going wrong. And it really helped, I felt, with medical performance. But during the nights, I actually felt that I performed better at night than I did during the day, because at night people only bother you with like important medical stuff. During the day, everyone wants a piece of you as a physician. But also, I had the caffeine at night. So energy drinks I can't really do, but I had to do something, so I just ate my caffeine, and I know it helped me. But more importantly, the studies show that in high-performing athletes, energy drinks can make that small difference. But again, now we're talking high-performing athletes. Most people who are consuming energy drinks are not high-performing athletes, and they're not getting the adequate nutrition or the adequate water that a high-performing athlete is getting. If your superhero task and the way that you help other people is that you sit in front of a computer and you scam bait, or you trick child predators, or you do voice recording for the Vocal ID Voice Bank, which is a way you can record your voice so that people who've had throat surgery and don't have voices and have to have like the Stephen Hawking implant, right? So that those people can have a voice, because your voice can be used with AI, with other voices, and they can have a real sounding voice and not a robot, right? So maybe you do that. Whatever your superhero thing is, if your superhero thing is like mine is right now, kind of sedentary, energy drinks not a really good idea, because like we found in the study on gamers, this was by Thomas et al., that when they tested 3 rounds of League of Legends study on a group of gamers, they tested their reaction speed, attention, working memory. The working memory test did have a statistically significant association. All the physical components worsened: hand grip strength, finger tap speed, all of that. And that makes sense because that's all fine motor. As a gamer, you need fine motor in the moment. And running is not fine motor. Running is what we call gross motor. It's gross from the German word groß. Groß. Ich habe mein Deutsch vergessen. Aber big. It means big. So the big movements. You don't need to have fine, precise control. It's okay if you're like... But if you're a gamer, you can't. You have to be thinking clearly, and you need that reaction time. So actually, energy drinks worsens your reaction time with esports, which is ironic because that's the people to whom energy drinks are marketed most aggressively. I mean, how many unconscientious ads have you seen where they're like, this is gamer fuel? And it's like, no, motherfucker, that's not gamer fuel. Excuse me, that's very rude, but it's not gamer fuel. That's not gamer fuel. Arginine and taurine, not arginine and taurine, arginine and silicone. So turkey and soybeans, that's gamer fuel. Other athletics, sports events that benefit from energy drinks include volleyball. Perez Lopez et al. Reported a positive correlation between athletic performance and, again, drinking Fury. Fury seems very popular in all these studies. Or fewer, I don't know how to say it. Compared to placebo, the energy drink increased ball velocity in the standing spike and jumping spike, and also improved jump height in the squat jump counter movement. Isn't that really cool? I love that they could study that. So it's been done in sprint swimmers, it's been done in badminton, tennis. Those are the people who should be having energy drinks. People who are working off the sugar, people who don't have hypertension, diabetes, any of these other kind of cardiac issues, folks who are not at risk for an increased QT interval. Those are the people for whom energy drinks are beneficial. What you do is you drink it before the match, you make sure you've been hydrating a lot the day before, and you hydrate during, as often as you can. You need to during your breaks, and that's how you optimize performance. So if that's the kind of superhero you are, that you are, doing, so there are SWAT teams that are like privately run SWAT teams that deal with human trafficking in Cambodia that you can volunteer for. There's other things like that. There are people signing up to go volunteer and help in Ukraine. There are people who are doing the same thing in Syria. Like if you have been training in martial arts so that you can prowl the bars and watch for people who are taking people home after drugging them, and like you can kind of try to step in and help out. And of course we don't want to get into the vigilante conversation, but if you're the kind of hero that you're doing something physically instead of more like me, like the Dr. Xavier person sitting in your chair, being the guy in the chair. The guy in the chair should not be having energy drink, even though that's the guy we always see having the energy drink. It's the other guy, the running around guy. So the most effective dose is 3 milligrams per kilogram. This was cited in a randomized controlled trial in the Medicine and Science Sports, the Journal of Medical Science Sports Exercise. And there's a lot of debate also about, or not debate, but there's a lot of additional information if you want to look into it on how genotype affects how energy drinks affects you, because that's an important thing. But a lot of the studies are small, and this is what I'm saying is like the studies are fairly large. Like I mentioned, it's 32 studies with 9,000 people for the negative effects of energy drinks, and these studies for the positive effects are like 18 people, right? They did a study. The effect of caffeine on cognitive performance is influenced by CYP1A2, but not a DORA2A genotype. Yet neither genotype affects exercise performance in healthy adults. In other words, one genetic type responds well to caffeine, the other one does not. So one type gets to have better sports performance as a result. That study in the European Journal of Applied Physiology, 2020. It's a small study, 18 people. So, and like I said, you need to understand that caffeine is a heart medicine and can therefore kill you, right? A lethal dose of caffeine has been noted as 5 grams, which is about 42 cups of coffee with 120 milligrams of caffeine a cup. And you might think that's almost impossible to reach. However, there's two, I'll tell you 2 fatal caffeine overdose reports. These are both in the Forensic Science International Journal. One of them is an IV drug user who injected like several hundred milligrams of caffeine into her blood to feel high, and she died. Her heart couldn't take that. Most of you aren't doing that. The other, though, was an obese diabetic male, and he had just taken too much. Both ingestions were accidental, or both the ingestions and the injection were not accidental. They weren't trying to, there was no SI. They weren't trying to end things, and they died, right? Even just 3 grams of caffeine can produce significant side effects, like arrhythmia, which is the most common. That's why when I did the, exam on you with we did an EKG first, right? Making sure you don't have an arrhythmia, right? Because caffeine, which is present in energy drinks, like I said, it's inotropic. It changes contractility. And you're welcome to double check me on that. So, a review by Naurot et al., which is, they sat and they looked at a bunch of different studies. We haven't looked at the studies, but they are in a peer-reviewed journal, so it's a good secondary evidence. Stated that a healthy adult can consume up to 400 milligrams of caffeine a day, if you weigh less than 65 kilograms. So 400 milligrams, I think you can get in one energy drink for some things, depending on what it is. So, and of course, combining it with stuff is really dangerous. Some people for sports performance are doing like ephedra, combining caffeine and ephedra. That short term, it will provoke weight loss. It's dangerous. So be careful about that. There was a study by Shikel et al. Where they had them take it and do weight loss, and it was found to help with anaerobic exercise, but it increased systolic blood pressure significantly, which is not good. And another clinical trial by Haller et al. Carried out in 16 healthy subjects, again a small group, but it's again these athletes, small groups, found that systolic blood pressure was increased and the heart rate increased, and individually ephedrine and caffeine had modest effects alone, but in combination there were significant cardiovascular, metabolic, and hormonal responses. So be careful. Make sure that if you're taking those kind of things, you're taking them under the direction of an expert, a doctor, a nutritionist, whoever. Another reason I like this really good review that has all of these beautiful studies in it is they're also logical and they make sense. One of the things they say is it could be that one of the issues with some of these studies is it's not just genetic factors but also previous consumption. People who have previously chronically used it are going to have a tolerance to it. Your heart develops a tolerance, your brain develops a tolerance, your body develops a tolerance to caffeine or any substance, right? And so then you're not going to see the same effect. So, based on this idea, if you want to use energy drinks to optimize your physical performance, what you want to do is not have it in your daily life, you know, just have one before your match or whatever. And that is who should be having energy drinks. As you know, I'm a provider. I'm a physician. This is not medical advice because this stuff could be dangerous. You need to find your own individual provider. And the benefit of having an individual consultation, which I can also do. I do health coaching consultations, as some of you know. Even if you're not like my patient, we can do health coaching, kind of find the ideal research that matches your body type and your need. I have an advantage in that I'm both a physician and a patient, and I took care of high-performing athletes, right? Because I took care of soldiers, and every soldier is an athlete. They have to be able to, you know, function, right? So I can work with that. And I've also taken care of very low-performing folks, right? Folks who are obese and depressed and struggling. So I can give you some advice on how to find your self-care if we do an individualized session, right? But whatever you do, while you're thinking through some of this data, figure it out yourself a little bit, but individualize it, because there could always be something that's different for your genetics, for your past medical history, blah, 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 blah. So, take care of yourself. Our self-care isn't always really self-care. You know, like, I could say my self-care is to sit with that bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken and just sit in a tub of ice cream. It's actually disgusting. And just swim. It's actually not self-care. It's actually unhealthy for me. It's actually a different kind of self-harm. And I really want to refocus self-care to the idea of something that's actually healthy for you. It actually helps you to improve and work on yourself, even if it's very gentle resting. While we're talking about this self-care stuff, I will remind you, once again, for those of you who weren't here, you can use my link, or you can go to go.factor75.com, and you can use code FACTOR, SE7493, to get $130 off 6 boxes of healthy chef-made food that gets shipped to your house, which is so cool, which I think that's neat. And they do keto, they do vegetarian diets, they have vegan options, they have low carb. You can let the chef choose for you, and you get a 30-minute nutritionist consult to help you figure out what's going to work for you best. And that's what it's all about, right? We got to get that individualized consultation and care so that you can actually, you know, improve your life. And that's self-care, right? That's paying into something that's good for your body. That is self-care, right? That's what, when we're thinking about trying to improve, you know, that's what we're doing. So, again, go.factor75.com. Go to Factor SE7493. We'll get you $130 off across 6 boxes. And all of those boxes, that helps to support payment for the ultrasound machine that I'm going to be consulting about buying this next month, actually next week, maybe even. And we actually need a mobile clinic unit, right? We need a van or something so we can go around and provide care for people. And administrative fees. I did just get back from Paraguay in October, and it is proving to be much more expensive than I thought for me to get my license transferred from the United States to Paraguay. It's no big thing. It's not the end of the world. That and the fees to move with Brian and the birds, it's very expensive, actually. Who would imagine that, like, air travel around the world is expensive, right? So, you, by taking care of yourself with your self-care, getting healthy things into your body, because here's the problem, sometimes you don't have time to take care of yourself. That's the problem, right? In a healthy way, right? Sometimes you only have time to get home, like get some KFC on the way home. I've mentioned them so many times. Good. Get some undisclosed unhealthy brand food on your way home from work, or when you're at home and you're tired and you just can't be asked to cook, right? You just can't. So you just order something. You spend $50 on some ridiculous DoorDash thing that you couldn't afford. And then now you have, too much food because they have to give you your value, and then it's like unhealthy, and then you just, it's a whole mess. So folks, so this is specifically for folks who don't really have time to cook healthy, don't have time to take care of yourself. If you're already doing that, keep doing that. But if you know you're not really being healthy, I actually sought out this sponsorship because I was like, oh my gosh, a company that's maybe doing something good. Let's see. let's get people good stuff. So, like I said, go.factor75.com and code Factor SE7493 to get $130 off 6 boxes. And that helps you take care of yourself and also helps me be able to take care of other people, which I'm excited about. We're going back to Paraguay in April. I have a Paraguay video coming out for you guys very soon, actually. So, the self-care is going to be slightly different for each person, right? For the vast majority of people, a cup of tea is excellent self-care because it has all kinds of lovely chemicals in it. It has a little bit of caffeine, it has theanine, sometimes other things. They're different quercetins, but that's different. Little things, all kinds of different chemicals that help to promote calm and pure antioxidants, all that good stuff, right? For most people, that would be self-care. But for some people who have had kidney stones, for example, right? Depending on the type of kidney stone, if it's a calcium oxalate kidney stone, it can actually make it worse, right? It can actually be bad. So, self-care is different for each person, but the goal matters, right? Like, why? What are we taking care of ourselves for? What's the next step? And yes, there is intrinsic worth in you. I disagree with Batman that we are what we do, because we are kind of what we do often, but we also are what we are, which doesn't that sound familiar? That, like, the divine God above all things, like, is what he is, right? Being is more important than doing. Doing comes from being. Life starts with being, right? So, all